Hey guys, Smoke here. Tonight seems like a pretty good night to go ahead and use my Smoke nickname since I haven't had the chance to really use it yet. So, go ahead and call me Smoke today. And today is very windy outside right now, very cold, feels a lot like fall, so I want to talk about something spooky. So, the other day, one of my friends commented on one of my videos asking me if I could discuss House of Leaves. And House of Leaves is an amazing book. It's written by Mark Danielewski. If you want to go ahead and look it up, I'll go ahead and write his name and everything in the description as well. And I've actually read that book 3 times because it is my absolute favorite book in the entire world. So, I'd love to actually do some discussions about it as well in the future. So I'm only going to pick one small topic from that whole book that I could be talking about right now. So, if you've never read the book, then this might not make sense to you. But feel free to watch the video anyway if you find it interesting. This isn't about artificial intelligence or robotics like I had originally marketed myself to do, but since I love House of Leaves so much and someone did request it, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it anyway. Okay, and as always, I am on mobile because it's the best camera I have, so you will see some movement from the camera as I shift my arms around from trying to hold it in this awkward position above my entire body right now. So anyway, so with House of Leaves, the spooky element, I guess, that I think I'd like to talk about right now is the Labyrinth. And, for those of you who don't know, House of Leaves, in essence, is a book about a labyrinth within a normal house. So, that doesn't make much sense right now, and it may not ever make sense, even if you read the book. Honestly, it's kind of confusing. But I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it anyway. So, in the book, a lot of the characters try to discuss, what is the meaning of the labyrinth. And since the labyrinth in the book itself was an actual physical thing that people could go through and explore, it didn't necessarily have a meaning. And a lot of characters, thought, it doesn't have a meaning, it just appeared, it's supernatural, whatever. But as an outsider reading the book, you wonder, like, what was the author trying to symbolize through the labyrinth? And when I read it a couple times, I actually had thought that the labyrinth was supposed to, in essence, show a kind of like a loss or something that a specific character was missing at any given time in their life, through the labyrinth. And it was supposed to be like that void and that emptiness that the characters may have been missing. And this is all speculation. I don't know if the author has talked at length about what any of it is supposed to mean or if it's left up into interpretation. So this is just my interpretations of it. I could be wrong. Maybe you think differently if you've read the book as well. But to me, it always symbolized a loss and an emptiness. One of the main character, Navidson, or Navy, as a lot of the nickname was for him in the book itself. He was a photojournalist, and he had done a lot of different stuff. Like, he was a soldier, and he wanted to photograph, the war life and real life and still life and everything like that. But then he settles down to have a family, and he doesn't go off to do his photojournalism anymore. He takes up a normal job and everything like that. So I felt like for his specific character, it was meant to symbolize that he lost that exploration aspect of himself that he wanted to keep. And, going to travel all over the world, you get to explore stuff while you take the pictures, but he didn't get to do that anymore. And ultimately, when he decided that he wanted to go into the labyrinth because he felt this great urge to explore it, it was like his character needed that exploration and needed to be part of the adventure. And he couldn't live without going through the labyrinth again. So for him, it was more of like, needing to explore something, needing to own it and capture it and make sense of it through his photojournalism. And for his wife, Karen, she was really afraid of crawl spaces and she had really bad claustrophobia. And in the end of the book, she actually ends up going into the labyrinth to save him, even though she was completely terrified of it before. For her, I feel like it was that sense of claustrophobia, and it actually helped her get over the claustrophobia because she went into this tight, dark, terrible space to save the person that she loved. And I feel like, because towards the end of the book, she's very distraught because Navidson goes to go off to the labyrinth and explore it, and she hasn't seen him for months. and she wants to be with him, she cares about him. But, she needed to go into the labyrinth itself as well to kind of get over the fear of not only her claustrophobia, but of possibly losing this person that she loved. And, for some characters, it doesn't really necessarily have a meaning. For Holloway, he was a hunter and an explorer and everything like that. And he was called in to first go into the labyrinth to explore it with two members of his team. And, there's a consistent growl, which is supposed to be the shifting of the labyrinth itself. The walls make a noise, which was never confirmed. But for him, it was a monster. He believed that there was a minotaur, of sorts, in the labyrinth. And so he goes off to try and capture it. And for his character, it seemed like he needed to go through, he needed to find a monster, he needed to have the validation of conquering this labyrinth, which could not technically be conquered by anything because it is not part of a normal world and a natural world. And, for some characters, they just said it was supposed to symbolize the female womb and, the re-entry, and the men want to explore it because it symbolizes the womb and their motherhood and things like that. And, that never really made sense to me. I felt like the labyrinth was more of just like an emptiness that needed to be filled within the people themselves. And, it's all speculation, honestly, because the labyrinth itself doesn't technically have a meaning within the book itself. But it was an interesting exploration of, how many different meanings can one specific object take form. A labyrinth being just a maze, what can a maze mean if put into a different context of different characters? Like with Navy or with Holloway or with Karen. And, it was really interesting to try to, piece it all together by the end and, what happened to them. And honestly, I already just spoiled the ending for you guys, so, don't really need to say any more about that. I kind of screwed that up already, but, it's just one of those things, like, what does the labyrinth mean? And, it may not have a meaning in general just because it is something that can technically not be explained. And, as a metaphor, could technically be a metaphor for emptiness, for the void, for loneliness, for the fear of death, for claustrophobia, for the womb, I don't know, for so many different things. And that, in the end, it doesn't really make sense, You kind of have to have your own interpretation of it, and that was my interpretation for the labyrinth itself. And that's all I have to say about that right now, honestly. And I thought that was going to be a much more long-winded topic than what I actually did say. So, unfortunately, that didn't go too well. But hopefully the next time I talk about House of Leaves, I'll have something much more interesting. I do have a lot of theories about certain aspects of the book as well that I went through. Like I said, I wish it could have been much more long-winded. I wish that I could have said something much more profound about the labyrinth and the meaning of it. But regardless, if you've never read the book, go off and read it. It's an incredible book. It does take a lot to get through, and it is very complicated, and you do have to kind of really pay attention when you read it. It's not just going to be like a typical story where it's like an easy, simple point A to point B story. It's very, very much point A to point B to point F, and then back to like C or something, It's very confusing, but you just gotta read it, And, shameless promotion of House of Leaves, because it's my favorite book, and honestly, I'm not trying to promote anything necessarily. I'm just talking about, how I feel about the book, because it's my favorite book, like I said. Hopefully I can do a small series about talking about House of Leaves, because that would be incredible. Honestly, I love discussing this book, but it's a little hard when I'm just trying to think of stuff to talk about by myself. But, if you have any theories about House of Leaves, if you've read it, then comment. And if I see your comment and it sparks my interest, then I will go ahead and discuss it as well, and I'll incorporate that into another video, because, like I said, it is really hard to try to talk about these topics by yourself when it's really more of a discussion. So, go ahead and comment if you've read the book. If you haven't read the book and you have a question, like about anything I said, please go ahead and comment that as well, because I will go ahead and answer it for you guys. And I guess that's it, and I will make another robotics or artificial intelligence video soon. I know that my slight discussion of, what was the movie I watched? That movie that I talked about. Oh, The Lazarus Effect. I know that wasn't exactly artificial intelligence. I did have a reason for putting it that I didn't mention in the video because I'm an idiot. But, I will talk about more artificial intelligence and robotics soon to try to get into that, because that is what I said that I would do. But, for now, it's October, it's spooky outside, it's really windy, I can hear the wind outside my window right now. It's just a nice feeling to be able to talk about something I love so much and something that is technically classified as horror. So, I hope you enjoyed my very small discussion of myself babbling about my favorite book. Like I said, go ahead and comment if you have questions or if you have a different theory about the Labyrinth, or if there is anything about House of Leaves, if you've read the book that you'd like me to talk about as well, because that would be a great discussion topic. And until I see you all again, stay humanoid.